Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge in the almighty dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you the 2023 Barbasol Championship. This is going to be my preview show. We're going to go over the course breakdown. We're going to look at a bunch of custom stat models that's going to flush out who we want to play from a DFS side, so the picks, and of course, with a major focus on the bets. And I will go over my betting card. And with all that said, thanks for stopping by. Give me about 20-30 minutes, get through all this information. And side note, I've actually never done a show for the Barbasol because it is an alternate event. But I thought, hey, if you are into, like I am a little bit, of the scoring fest that will take place here, like we've seen over the last few tournaments, why not put a quick show out to help you guys if you want to at least get some betting in and maybe a little DFS. Okay, so we're going to jump right into the course breakdown. And with that said, these guys will be pegging up their ball on Thursday at the Keene Trace Golf Club at the Champions Course, located in Nicholasville, Kentucky. The Barbasol Championship has been hosted here since 2018, and this is an Arthur Hills design, opened up back in 1987. It's a par 72. We do have four par 5 since the scoring that will take place, and it's playing at 7,328 yards. We're bent grass across all surfaces except the rough. Just like we just saw at the John Deere, you're going to have that bluegrass fescue mix. We got a full player field of 156, and it will be cut down to T65 and ties. Historical cut line is somewhere between 3 to 4 under here, and the winning score that we've seen over the last few years is somewhere between 21 to 26 under. Of course, Trey Mullinex last year won this event shooting 25 under, went into the last hole tied with Kevin Streelman at 24 under. They both had birdie putts. Actually, Mullinex was probably the tougher, was closer to the first cut, the fringe, and I don't know, I guess about 15 feet. He made it. Then Kevin Streelman had like a 12-footer. He actually ran it by on the right side and missed, hence no playoff, and Trey Mullinex gets his first win. Then the year before that, we saw Seamus Power win here, which really kind of kicked off kind of his good showings, another good showing at the John Deere. He shot 21 under, and then I didn't even know this, but Jim Herman, well, of course, 2020, COVID shut it down. But 2019, Jim Herman won here, shooting 26 under. Of course, the win that I think about from the Club Pro, Jim Herman was actually at the Wyndham a couple years ago. But I think that was, 2020? So towards the end of the COVID thing. And then 2018, Troy Merritt won here at 23 under, which some people were on last week for the John Deere. He did make the cut, not a bad showing, but I don't think he even top 10, but still decent showing. Okay, back to the course. Average green size here is a little larger than what we see on the typical PGA Tour event. They're at 6,000 square feet. To give you some reference, I think last week was somewhere around 5,000 square feet at TPC Deer Run. And then all the way to the furthest, 7,000 square feet is what you see at the Tournament of Champions at Kapalua. Exact number of sand bunkers, as we saw at TPC Deer Run, is 76. And then fairways are a little more narrower than what we saw at the John Deere at 26 acres. At the John Deere was 28. And then we actually have 6 holes. It says that water comes into play. Funny enough, though, when I go through the course map, I can only find 5, which would be hole number 5, 8, 9, 17, and 18. And stent meter, I did not the superintendent sheets, but I'm guessing it's going to run somewhere around standard. It's all going to be depending on rain and whatnot, but somewhere around 12 on the stent meters where I'm guessing. Course defense, from what I remember, like I said, I've not watched a ton of this tournament. I've caught bits and pieces. I went back and watched last year's highlights. But everything looks very, almost a little bit like we saw at the Rocket Mortgage at the Detroit Country Club, or Detroit Golf Club, excuse me. Or also what we saw at the John Deere is, you got the tree line, you do have the pine trees. So they kind of box it in. There's also tall fescue if you get really wayward, which could cause issues. The rough, I'm guessing, is, I did not also get this information, but from what I saw last year, probably around 4-inch rough. Again, if they've had a bit of rain there, maybe they'll get the mowers on it, like what happened at TPC Deer Run. And then there is a couple par 3s are probably the tougher, holes on the course, over 200 plus. And then the last 3 holes on this track are actually the toughest. They don't have a name for it as far as I know, but it is like, we'll look at that when we break down the scorecard, but it is the toughest holes. And also 17 and 18, water runs the whole fairway light. Okay, and funny enough, actually, you can see that here on, it'll be right here, 17, 18, that have the water kind of running and around the green. And that's really, as you can kind of see, this is just a quick map of the Champions course quite a bit of trees, as you see. And then again, the water really prevails. You got like a little creek with a pond in front of 5. It's like, again, as I mentioned, 17 here, 8, water running along, and then around the green. And then you've got water all around on 18. And then where did I see it also? I said, yeah, right here on 5. So it's really like, this is the main body of water that I can find. And then, like I said, a little creek on 5. So that's really it from there to give you a little better visual. Here is that, looks like this would be 18, I believe. Got 8 here, just gives you kind of a quick understanding. But, you know, quite a bit of room to move it, especially if you like to hit the fade. Looks like it'd be good on that hole. And then even on this hole, you could kind of put it at the edge of water, let it fade back. And then here, I believe this is hole number 8 right here, just to give you another little look. Okay, so let's jump at the scorecard. So you can really see one thing that okay, now looking at the scorecard, what I was going to point out, which you can see very clearly here, and I think I noted it in the course breakdown, but did not state it, is that there's almost 2 different 9s as in the scoring ability. You can see the front 9 is actually where you could just tear this course up. You're going to see birdie rates of like 30%, 50%, almost 50%, 50%, like 63. That is so rare on a PGA Tour event. Typically, the birdie rates are somewhere between 20 to 30, but so it's almost like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 almost given birdies on this course. And then even from an eagle rate, you've got ones that are almost 8% here on 15, 8. So just a lot of really, as I said, kind of a bit of a score fest. Also, you'll see kind of the bookends 9 and 18, which is going to remind you a lot of what we just saw at the John Deere Classic. The 2 hardest holes on the course are on the bookends. And if, an advantage, I think either way, I would want to start in a showdown perspective, my guys, off 1, because not only are they going to get off to a hot start, hopefully, also that's where a consecutive birdie bonus can happen. But there's also this possibility, if somehow on this par 3 they stick it, hopefully within 20 feet and make their putt, then they've got one more chance with the number 12. I like the guys going off the front from a showdown perspective. If you're looking at the consecutive birdie bonus, here's the actual scorecard for the PGA, and every yardage looks exactly correct. So no things to point out from that perspective. All right, so let's take a look at some history. And I didn't go deep back. I only went a couple of years. Funny enough, within Fantasy National, I think it's 2019, the year Jim Herman actually won. They have no history of this tournament whatsoever, which is really weird. So I went back to last year and the year before. So if you look at Trey Mullinax, the one thing we know about Trey is that he is pretty elite in length off the tee. But you can see, honestly, he got it done with the irons. Yes, I think getting off the tee and getting distance is an advantage here, but I don't think it's a must. As you see, like a Kevin Streelman, a Mark Hubbard, Adam Svensson, really good iron player, doesn't hit it super long, not too far off from the guys that I was kind of looking at for the John Deere Classic last week. Really good ball strikers. Hope that putter goes. But you can definitely see, the override is you're going to have to, it's a bit of a putting contest. Irons, as usual, is the number one thing I think, but length off the tee definitely doesn't hurt. Again, with Seamus Power, I'd put him more in that bucket of like an Adam Svensson. He's not super long, typically very accurate. And you can see he kind of did everything just really solid. He gained quite a bit off the tee, gained quite a bit on approach, good around the green, and good with the putter. And actually, looks like he led around the green, at least out of the top finishers. That's funny. Mito Pira actually played in this. I had no clue before he went to live last year. My buddy Patrick Rogers, Ryan Armour, kind of a plotter. James Hahn. So also what this told me was that from a putting perspective, James Hahn, funny enough, is right below Luke List, is like the worst putter I've ever seen on tour. Even worse than Luke List, yes. But he actually gained 3.5 strokes on the field here with the putter, which tells me these greens are pretty simple, pretty flat. Luke List actually just ball striked as usually the crap out of it when he played, but did not gain with the putter. Lahiri, remember right, well, it was the Players he kind of popped up, almost had a chance. We'll talk about Henrik Norlander. I think he's very interesting. He is in the field. The rest of these guys are not that are up here. And then you can see Sam Ryder, again, just doing it all with the irons. So again, nobody in the red, everybody gaining quite a few strokes of the irons and also a little bit of the tee. And funny enough, 3 guys ended up in the top 5, well, tied for 5th, losing with a putter. So again, the things that I'll be focusing on, it is still going to be a putting contest. I believe that, but it's all about irons. I do like guys, like last week I was going more with a little bit more into plotter strategic. Here I like guys that got a little more distance off the tee. And then this is not really helpful, and it's hard on a historical point because a lot of these guys will play this event once if they need. So, right, it is an alternate event. What does that mean? Like, if you win it, you do not get in the Masters. Now, funny enough, whoever wins this tournament typically does get the last spot for the Open. So that's kind of cool. Last year, Molinex actually, won this and then jumped on a flight and away he went. I'm guessing they might have had a charter or something already waiting for him. It's pretty rare that guys play this multiple times, unless you're just trying to keep your card or just improve. If you just had a bad year, really. We're not going to see really any of the big names. It's the worst field that we're going to see, of course, with a major, running as these alternates are. But Kevin Strummel has played it a couple times. Even Taylor Pendrith, funny enough, has played it a couple times. Of course, Taylor Pendrith was on the cover just because I think that picture is kind of funny. Also, he's had probably the best back-to-back, and he's also probably most expensive on DFS. I've not seen the DraftKings pricing yet, but I know from an odds perspective, he is the lowest odds at last I looked. My buddy, funny enough, Richard Wawrinski, who actually showed up at John Deere a little bit, has had some decent finishes, but not recently. Well, it looks like he withdrew last year, but missed a couple before that. Cameron Percy, the Australian, which is just weird, but he's played it 4 out of 5 times. Duffner also, who's had a good showing here, and also had a good showing just recently at the John Deere. My buddy Satoshi Kodair, who made the cut, but just didn't do a whole lot on the weekend at the John Deere. So I'm just kind of looking through here. But anyways, long story short, there's not a lot I would do that with this, except just state that guys typically don't play many times here in a row. Like Trey Molinex is not in the field. A lot of guys that won here do not come back to try to repeat for their championship, put it that way. And there it is right here showing Trey Molinex when he got his last entry in. Even got a little bag tag there. Look at that. So anyways, what am I looking for a player profile that I'll be looking at? I am, like I said, going to be doing more betting on the Barbasol than I will do from a DFS side. But the number one thing, of course, which is not too shocking approach, will be heavily weighted off the tee. I told you guys, yes, accuracy is needed here, but I feel like distance definitely comes in a big advantage. Ball striking, because this 175 to 200 shows up. Going to have to make putts. And then the 2 procs of the pins that showed up historically, like the John Deere we saw last week, 125 to 150, and then 175 to 200, both at 20%, which is kind of interesting. I would guess a bit of that comes in with guys going for it on the par 5s. There's some short ones. There's some par 4s, but not anything that I saw was crazy from length. All right, so with all that said, of course, I did create a custom stat model for you guys, and the weightings are up here, and I'll go through it real fast. Approach is weighted at 30%, off the tee at 15, ball striking at 15. So if we add that up, that 60% of the model is from tee to green. Putting at 10, that proximities I put at 5% each. Birdie or better gain, that's giving you opportunities to make a birdie or an eagle. And then, of course, birdies heavily weighted at 15%. As I said, this is going to be a bit of a scoring fest. Plug all that in, no filters turned on, looking at the last 6 tournaments or 24 rounds of golf that these guys played. And amazing enough, Kevin Roy, which I like to kind of say from a hockey perspective, Kevin Waugh, but it is Kevin Roy, actually is at number 1. And I did a little digging into him. I was curious. So I guess a couple of years ago, he actually was, I think he was on the Latin tour, struggled and quit golf, and actually went to do medical sales. I guess his brother also did it. And then finally he got pushed back in from family and friends that, hey, too much talent, Kevin. You got to go try it again. Long story short, he finally made it on the Corn Ferry Tour, did enough on the Corn Ferry, then graduated last year to this year, made it to the PGA. And I've been on him. I've been picking him. I picked him, I believe, even last week. He did make the cut as far as I believe at the John Deere. But where I'm going with all this is that what we're looking at is long shots. And, of course, I hammered Kevin Roy at, I believe that's pretty close to what I got him. Maybe it was 150 to 1. But I actually got him, bet him this morning before I did any of this. So it was good to see under a recent form of the model that I'm interested in where he popped up. Okay. Of course, my buddy Lucas smelled the glove. Would really like to see him pull it out. I knew it was a lot to ask, but he has been playing really good golf. He comes in number 2. I think at the John Deere, he ended up, I don't know, around 5th, something like that. This Marcus Hello Kitty is a DP World Tour guy, which I don't even think he's been playing that great over there. But he had one really good outing last year here, and that's hence the 4 rounds So that's it. That's his only PGA Tour event. So do with that what you may, but I do not think that's a good bet, 55 to 1. Vincent Norman, who's been playing some really good golf. I feel like I got exposed to him quite a bit at the Zurich. You got quite a bit of coverage of him. Also played very well there. Of course, Akshay Patil, we've all been waiting for the breakthrough. Made the cut at the John Deere. What we've kind of learned is that this guy just really likes slow greens and putting on past Powell, which these are not. But from a talent perspective, he's one of the more talented guys in the field. You got Scott Piercy, who literally, I tweeted this out. So he shot, I think, I don't know, a couple over the first day at the John Deere, and then played 9 holes and was over again and just withdrew. I don't like to see that. Now I get it. You know, you're like, no way I'm making the cut. I'm sure you're frustrated. But hey, man, finish the other 9. You know, you're a professional, and I don't want to hear, oh, my back or whatever, bull crap. You knew you couldn't make the cut. You were shooting like crap, and you WD'd. So anyways, though, what we do know about Scott Piercy, the last time in my mind that he really had a chance to win a PGA event was last year at the 3M Open, not too far from this time. And I just kind of blew it on Sunday with the putter and everything. It just all kind of fell apart. But he can go crazy low, I've always stated. He can literally shoot like 8 under for 9 holes and then shoot like 8 over for the next 9. So do with that what you may. I'm not touching it. Cam Champ's actually been showing up and playing a little better golf. We know how elite he is off the tee. Had a really good John Deere for him and is popping up there. You got Marty Dow. Kevin Streelman also had a pretty good John Deere. Justin Lauer, this was a bummer. I don't know what's going on with him, but he did pull out of the tournament before even Thursday. I think he pulled out like Wednesday. And I told you guys he's been playing pretty good golf, but he's been just lighting up bent greens, like one of the best bent putters. And I bet him last week, but of course I got that money back. Thank you, Draftkings. But I'm a little nervous because I don't know what the deal was. So hopefully I can do a little. I haven't done no betting or nothing with him, but I do like that, 50 to 1, 45 to 1. I think at points bet he was 55 to 1, but I still, like I said, have not pulled the trigger. You got Josh Teeter, Andrew Novak, Cody Gribble, Austin Smotherman, Satoshi Godard. And I will put a side note. There's going to be a lot of guys in this field that are coming from the European Tour that are literally, I think there's a Club Pro. Like, it's just random dudes. Some guys from Kentucky that, play this course a lot and like it. They're in the field. So there's going to be guys that I do not know. I did a little bit of homework on the ones I didn't, but I'll just let you know right now that there's going to be some names I have no clue. All right, now we look at recent form. Same thing, I call it recent form. So over the last 3 tournaments, 12 rounds, same model. Lucas Glover goes to number 1. I think this Peter Quest is just amazing. What's going on with this guy? Monday qualified a few times, which is really hard to do. I talked about this at the John Deere show. I picked him last week. He showed up again. I think he ended up top 10. He was up there for a while. I think he fell back a little bit. I think he shot like even par on Sunday, but was shooting, mid 60s Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But anyways, and now where I'm going with all this is crazy. He's in a alternate event, but it's a PGA Tour event, and the guy's 25 to 1 to win the thing. I already talked about this. Marcus had a good round here last year. I don't think he's done a whole lot from what I remember on the DP World Tour, so nothing too excited for me. Scott Pierce, we talked about, Lauer, Kevin Roy, Carl Yuan, Josh Teeter, Vincent Norman, Chad Ramey. Kind of fits what he does, this course. Remember, he popped up at the Players too, I believe. Of course, he won the Corrales Punta Cana about a year ago. Cameron Champ, we talked about. Pendrith, he does, where he's had some of his better outings, was putting on bent. I go back to the Rocket Mortgage. Troy Merritt, same thing. This Masahiro Kawamura, of course, he actually does play on the DP World Tour, but of course also played on the Japan Tour. And again, I looked into him. I didn't see anything fabulous with what he's been doing on the DP World Tour, but again, who knows? And of course, Satoshi Godai, which I kind of like. He did show up at the John Deere. When I mean that, he made the cut. Didn't do too bad. I don't know where exactly off the top of my head where he ended, but he has, the guy typically hits a ton of fairways. And when the putter starts to get hot, this guy, I told you, if you've been with me for a while, I would bet him on first round finishers, whatever. And if he had an early morning tee time, and he made me money twice, pretty good money to start the week, the week off, which is always awesome. But when his putter starts to run good, watch out, because he can do some things. So I like Satoshi Godire. All right, so again, I mentioned you're not going to see, I tried to pull 12 rounds of golf for these guys, which would be 3 past tournaments. But again, these guys typically, if they do well here, they typically don't show back up, or if they win it, they don't have to come play this event again. They're going to go play the Open or take the week off. With all that said, though, you can look at how many rounds. A lot of these guys are most like 8, or there's a couple 10s. With all that said, Kevin Streelman, like I said, had a good finish here last year, almost won the thing. Been playing good golf, too. I mean, honestly, at 30-1, it's not a bad bet for him. Troy Merritt, Kadire, Robert Streb. I'm trying to remember the last time. I think it was maybe the Shriners where he had a really good showing. You got Duffner, who's actually been making some putts, picking up his game. Matthias Schmid, Henrik Norlander. From a talent perspective, we'll talk about this on the betting, but I think is your best value. I don't know where he's priced from a DFS perspective. We'll see that out. But I like him. I said this, I think I made the call of the week with picking Mr. Brennan Todd, and I emphasized it multiple times. At 80-1, he was the best value, I thought, from a betting perspective, and also from a DFS, which I think he was around 7,500, somewhere around there, maybe up a little, below a little. I'll go in a recap show, but if somehow you don't watch my Scottish show, the short of it, if you got to watch the end of the tournament, was that Brendan Todd had that thing to win. He missed an 8-footer for birdie coming down at the end, which like last 4 or 5 holes, it all fell apart. He missed an 8-footer, was on a par 3, had a 20-foot putt for birdie, ran it by 5 feet, missed a 5-footer back. So then now he went to bogey. Then on the 17, where everybody was birdieing that, par 5, he literally hits it in the trap, if I remember, lays up, bad approach shot from like 70 yards, missed that birdie, and then I think he parred the last hole. So that was a bit of a bummer, especially if you guys jumped on that betting too. But yeah, Brendan Todd kind of fell apart there at the end. And then, of course, out of nowhere was Straka. And that's a whole, I'll talk about that in the recap show for the Open. Okay, sorry, I digress. Ryan Armour, you got a plotter. Scotty Brown, plotter. My buddy Rich Wawrinski. Always go back to the 3M Open where he had his best chance that I remember. James Hahn, Bo Van Pelt, the Canadian Michael Glick, and Sean O'Hare, who, what I've learned about Sean, I've watched him for a bit, but he kind of out of sight, out of mind. The guy's a really good putter. I watched him quite a bit at Zurich. They showed a lot of him, and the guy was draining putts left and right. So pretty good play if you wanted to bet. All right, so I always do this Ironman. This is the most important stroke gain stat almost for every tournament that I can think of, but this one very much so. And what is this? I am focusing all on the approach shot. So you got 50% on the approach, and then I always put in the key proximity of the pins that show up from a historical perspective, the 125 to 150, 175 to 200, and I put those in at 25 each, so 100%. And if you're just curious who's just crushing it with the irons, Lucas Glover, then there's my Kevin Roy, Vincent Norman, Batia, Kyle Stanley, which is funny because he's not had good finishes at all, but does show up here or there with just some good starts. There's that Marcus again, but he's only got 4 rounds of data within Fantasy National. Santiago Tario, again, I'm pretty sure he is a DP World Tour player from Latin America, and didn't see anything that made me really want to invest my time in him. Ryan Moore, Kadire, Novak, Streelman, Justin Lauer, Champ, Josh Cheater, and Ted Potter Jr. Rounds out through guys. Now, again, with Ted Potter, some of these guys, the data is going to be older. I'm trying to keep it recent, but again, some of these guys only get very limited spots to play on the PGA Tour. So the next thing I said is going to be a putting contest, and one thing you're going to have to do is make putts unless you're just have 4 days of just chipping everything in or sticking it within an inch. But as I mentioned, Justin Lauer over the last 6 tournaments, 24 rounds, has just been putting the lights out. So he is the number 1 in the field, best putter. Now, Andy Sullivan, you should probably know a little bit about. I do watch a little bit of the DP World Tour. He's been on the DP World Tour. I think he's almost like 40 years old now. He's a short, almost looks like a little bit of a fatter Terrell Hatton. Anyways, I actually just checked into him because I was curious. I haven't seen him in a while. His last 2 finishes, which have been recent on the DP World Tour, have been like a 14th and a 15th. So the one guy that I probably will play on the DP Tour as well, there's another guy I bet that we'll talk about on the DP World Tour, Andy Sullivan. I like him. And a pretty good player, but very streaky. You got some you'll know. Harry Higgs could be a get-right event for him to win at 60-1. Peter Malnati's been playing some good golf. He typically does it all with the putter. Adam Long, Austin Cook had a pretty good showing here last year. Again, my buddy Richard Wawrinski, Ricky Barnes, Scott Piercy, Aaron Cockrell, Vincent Whaley, who also had a very good showing here last year, but man, it's been a pretty rough showing for Vincent. Matthias Schmid, Andrew Landry, who also showed up. He did like first or second round leader. Like he shot like 8 under out of nowhere. I believe, what was that, at the Rocket maybe? It was a recent tournament. It was kind of crazy out of nowhere. And then it's Dion Gershmashai. I have no clue who that is. I'm not going to pretend I do. So, but I guess at one point, someday, he was on bent greens for 2 rounds and putted really well. All right, so I kept this in here again for the comp courses. I'm going to be using all the ones where they light it up. Of course, where we just saw the TPC Day Run to Travelers. This is Shriners. Of course, that's Waste Management. I am not pulling in TPC Sawgrass, even though, like I said, since 2000, a ton of birdies have been made there. But again, I do not consider TPC Sawgrass as a putting contest or a birdie fest as titled. And so the first thing I did is I ran that showdown model for you guys that I've been showing you that I use. And it's all about scoring. So birdies are at 50%, eagles at 15, birdie or better, and bogey avoidance. And you can see the weightings there. Looking over the last 3 tournaments, Peter Quest is actually led in that field, which makes sense. Also, you got to remember, was it the Byron Nelson he qualified for and had a very good showing, which kind of put me on him back for, I believe it was the Rocket Mortgage. You got Lucas Glover, MJ Duffy, Justin Lauer. I'm going to stop saying Hello Kitty. Carl Yuan, Peter Molinati, Ramey, Roy Higgs, Josh Teeter, Kuradek, Appy Barn Rat. Here's a guy, if you don't know who this guy is, the Rat, was on the PGA Tour, lost his card. He is, now playing, of course, on the Korn Ferry. I didn't look into how he's doing, but very interesting. I kind of skipped over him from my analysis, so I need to dive into him more on the picks, but could be an interesting bet. I mean, this was Benoit Ann and Kuradek Epi Barnrat. They look a little similar, and their game to me is a little similar, and they could score. Like these two guys, back in the day, you could play them cheap on DFS as your kind of bottom fillers, and it was boom or bust. And it's probably still that way, I'd have to guess. You got Andrew Wilson, Scott Piercy, and this Trevor Cohn. Of course, he's new, a lot like Kevin Roy, but pretty good player. If I remember right, he's got a ton of distance off the tee. All right, so let's take a look at the comp courses. I already mentioned that I'm plugging in a bunch of the birdie ones. These are the ones that I ended up going with. I kept in the Canadian Open, which, they get to around 20 under it. And also at Oakdale, you got bent greens, the Travelers, again, 20 under bent greens. The Rocket are bent greens. Waste Management's Bermuda, Shriners Bermuda, and then AT&T Byron Nelson, where they played at TPC Craig Ranch, is bent green. So I like this kind of mix. A lot of scoring, a lot of bent greens. And with that said, these guys who got to play these tournaments, this is how they done. Andrew Novak, funny enough, came up number 1 against my model. Peter Quest, now this is the big model, right? Looking at all the different stroking categories. Peter Quest number 2, Lucas Glover, Chris Stroud, which that's kind of interesting. He's had a little bit of a resurgence. I'd have to guess he lost his card and then made his way back. But a couple times I've seen him on the PGA Tour, which, again, he made the cut at the John Deere. He has been playing better golf. Got Justin Lauer, Ryan Gerard, that Monday qualifier at the Honda. Very streaky. I watched, this guy, he also made the cut at the John Deere, but can go low. Vincent Norman, Tanya Goya, I believe he came off the Latin American Tour. Robert Garricus, been around for a long time. Scott Brown. Steven Stallings, not to be confused with Scott Stallings. Akshay Bhatia, Kevin Roy, Kyle Stanley, and Grayson Murray, which I just have to bring this up. I will bring it up on the recap show, but out of nowhere, man, Jonas Blix, round 1 leader at the John Deere, shot, 9 under? That is it was just mind-blowing. And then they have Grayson Murray shoot 7 under and be right there behind him. It was like bizarro world. And, good for them. Like I said, Blix, he kind of bombed it a little bit day 2, but then did well Saturday and Sunday. Grayson Murray also played really well for him. These are guys that would have never shocked me if they never played on the PGA Tour again. Jonas Blix, the only one that I remember is with Cam Smith right at the Zurich. I think it was the first team event for the Zurich. But, that guy's been in a rough. But, he mentioned he had a little presser talking about Jonas Blix that he, worked with his coach, of course, found something. The putter started to go, and who knows? He's in this field. He's 100-1. I actually just, not to spoil anything, but I bet him. Like, why not? Out of this field, I feel like it is open for anyone to win. And then same with Grayson Murray. Now, 50-1, the bet on Grayson Murray. Now, I looked, his Korn Ferry, he's also done pretty well on the Korn Ferry. It is the Korn Ferry, which this is really a Korn Ferry event. So, yeah, again, he's got that length. Typically, he can just get going sideways with it, but kept it pretty well in play at the John Deere. So anyways, all that said, that is against my model. Then I also ran that showdown model for you too. Again, all about the scoring. See how that came up. Also, I was trying to do 24 rounds, but as mentioned, some of these guys do not have that. But Peter Quest came up at number 1. Norman, Kadire, Lauer, Molinati, Long, Tanya Goya, Stroud. I always get him mixed up with Brian Stewart, just the names. Josh Teeter, Kang, Gribble, Scotty Brown, Gainey, 2 gloves, which I think he got in the field, I think, at the John Deere, but I didn't see anything about him. I felt like he got in as an alternate. Trevor Cohn, and then Robert Garrigus again pops in there for if you want to know. So again, if you're doing some showdown stuff, not a bad list. So if you're a sicko like me and you're betting on the Barbasol Championship, which I am, then you're going to have a pretty sicko card, and this is what I got so far. Of course, I already talked about Kevin Roy. I got him at, I think, 150 to 1 this morning, but I bet that pretty hard. Actually, on Draftkings and points bet, I ended up betting it. I did bet, actually, I got him at like 30 to 1. I think the numbers dropped a little bit, but I think everybody's going to bet him. I mean, especially if you've been betting him, which I have off and on during this year. Jumping on the Satoshi Kadire train again. Peter Quest, I have to, I almost feel, because of the call for the Rocket Mortgage and everything. And I've been betting him. You know, the guys just keep showing that he can score, which, you know, if you do as many, I think he said within the last year, he Monday qualified 3 times, which you had to pretty much shoot 62, 63 to do that. This guy can go low, and we see it. He's repeating the process of good shows. So, hey, got to go with it. Ryan Gerard. Brandon Matthews, you know, like I said, this is more of, I mean, the guy is just crazy to lead off the tee. He has won a Corn Ferry event. Of course, he graduated from the Corn Ferry and didn't do too bad to John Deere. And I think I got him at 300 to 1. This John Catlin he plays on the DP World Tour. If you don't know who this guy is, kind of popped in the PGA Tour here or there for a couple of events. I just got to put eyeballs on this guy within the last couple of years. Typically, he hits a ton of fairways. It's not real long. He hits about 300. But when I was watching him, he was really good with the irons and was just draining everything with the putter. I believe he's got, I think, 3 wins on the DP World Tour. So out of the European guys, there's a couple, and again, it's probably who I'm familiar with. John Catlin is a guy. But now, if you go look at his recent form or history on the DP World Tour, it's not great at all. But, you know, like I said, I know what he has done. So I bet him, I think it was a little better than 110 to 1. I told you Henrik Norlander, we already talked about this. I think is like my Brendan Todd call last week. Probably the best talent at that price. I'm actually pretty shocked. Yes, he doesn't have a win on tour, but pretty elite ball striker. I always kind of put him and Neesmith in my own brain in the same camp. But yeah, I mean, just like Straka, they also kind of remind me a little bit of each other. Why not? Why not go nuts and go from shooting 3 over first day to, you know, 62s and 63s or whatever. There's Jonas Blix. I told you, I think I got 110 to 1. Max McGreevy, I got him at 700 to 1. And I'm like, out of this field, and Max McGreevy, I think, ended up showing up here last year at the Barbasol. At least he's, you know, an everyday PGA player. He graduated from the Corn Ferry. I think he had some good or decent vacation swing events, but really has really been bad on a lot of the PGA Tour, a lot of missed cuts. But like I said, he showed up here last year. He was 700 to 1. And I literally tried to bet it a little hard, and that's where points bet slapped me down. And then as Jesse Mueller, I might mess this up, but what I understand, he's had a ton of success from like a, you know, local Kentucky, you know, tournaments. When I mentioned like the Club Pro getting an invite to go play here, that's this guy. And literally it was 1,000 to 1 on points bet. I threw a couple bucks on it. Just why not? Again, out of this, you know, it could be like a Michael Block thing, you know, out of nowhere, just shows up and, you know, has nothing to lose. He's gambling with house money and, you know, and goes out and maybe has 4 days of his life that, you know, and hey, we just saw a bit of this at the John Deere, right? With the Grayson Murrays and the Jonas Blixes. I'm trying to think of, there was some other crazy, you know, 1 day crazy rounds that I'm probably forgetting. But anyways, that's that. I mean, that's, just literally just saw it, just like, you know what? I'll put a couple bucks on 1,000 to 1 for this guy. Okay, so that's the preview. Now let's go over. I give you my bets. Let's go jump over into Fantasy National. I'm gonna go through all the well, not all, but we'll go through quite a few players, and I'm gonna show you who I'm gonna be using from a player pool for the DFS side. Okay, so I've tried to hop over into Fantasy National, but they still do not have up the pricing from DraftKings. So for whatever reason, I cannot do the typical kind of dashboard analysis for you guys. but I've done my own, and I have picked 20 players that I'll be using for the Barbasol from a DFS perspective. Again, more focused. Well, the largest GPP I've seen so far, I think it's like 15K to first or something like that. But neither here or there. These are the guys that I'm interested in playing from a DFS side. Again, against what you're seeing here against my model over the last 24 rounds, no filters turned on. You can see how they rank out, but more of it's just players that I'm comfortable with. Also taking some shots and guessing from the odds perspective that I have that they will also kind of spread out pretty evenly throughout the DFS pricing when that gets released. At least it is released on Draftkings, but for whatever reason, it has not been put into Fantasy National. Okay, with that said, I've got Lucas Glover, Peter Quest, Akshay Bhatia, and would be, I guess, the top three guys probably in the 10,000, 9,000 range that I'm looking to play. And then MJ Duffy, Justin Lauer. Again, I have to find out how he's doing. Was it an injury or did he pull out for some other reason? But interested in Justin Lauer, Chad Ramey. A lot of that's on the putting side, what he can do. I mentioned from a DP Roll tour, I am interested in Andy Sullivan. He's had good starts over there. Also, I'm comfortable. I've watched his game over quite a long time. So from a DP World Tour, I'll play some Andy Sullivan. Got Marty Dow I like. Tyler Duncan, again, this is almost more of a guy that I know can go low, typically on easy courses, so we'll play him. Harris Higgs has been playing a little better golf, and I think he'll view this as an event that he really needs to win and get that 300 FedEx points because it's been a rough year for him. I'm going to go with Ryan Gerard, of course, a good showing at the Honda, and then other tournaments that he showed up at Ken Score. Jazz Janawataneo, it's easy to say. We're just going to call him Jazzy J. Of course, he plays quite a bit on the DP World Tour. I got to see a little bit of him when he qualified for the U.S. Open this year. I like his game. He also can get very streaky. Satoshi Kodaira, talked a bit about him on the betting side. Henrik Norlander, the same thing. I'll state, as I did for Brendan Todd for the John Deere, I think one of the better values from a betting side and also a pick side. This could be a tournament. Henrik Norlander could also get his first win. John Catlin, I mentioned I bet him. Also, again, familiar with his play on a DP World Tour. I have not got to watch him a lot recently. Also, his recent tournaments over at the DP World Tour are not great, but I do know what he can do when he's on, so why not? Jim Herman, why not? I talked a bit about him. Of course, his Birdie Fest on, what was it, round 2 or round 3 he had, and of course, he's won the Wyndham. And this is a course that he can show up on in this field. Again, it's open for anybody, so I'm going to play a little Jim Herman, guessing his price tag is going to be low 7s, high 6s. Kevin Roy, again, talked about how much I bet him. Probably one of the top plays I'll play. I'm also expecting, if they go by odds, that his pricing will be high 6s, low 7s. Chris Stroud, Richard Wierenski, throw him right in with the Jim Herman bucket. And then last but not least, my long shot bet at 700 to 1, Max McGreevy, who I believe ended up top 10 here last year. So why not? Maybe this is, again, a place that he's comfortable with and can get his game back on form. But it has not been a good season for Max. So with that said, that's the player pool. Sorry, I couldn't go into a little more as usual analysis, but again, it is the Barbasol. I've got to work on the Scottish Open show and get that out for you guys tomorrow. All right, so that's it. I did put together a Barbasol championship show for you guys. Was able to get you custom stats. It's not the best because we have a lot of guys, as I stated, from a stroke game perspective, that we don't get to see a lot. They're not in the models, but I did try to do a little bit of analysis on anyone that maybe popped up or was at least on the radar. And, if I saw something that I thought you guys should know, but again, a lot like we saw at the John Deere, whenever you get these very weak fields, they're all professional golfers at some level. They all could have 4 days of golf, go out of their mind. And so, we could see anybody. And this is a great tournament. Again, why I bet this tournament more than I ever do from a DF or play as a DFS side. So that's my recommendation. Of course, I'm guessing a lot of folks like myself will do more DFS for the Scottish Open and throw some long shots here on the Barbasol. All right, guys, if you do watch any of the Barbasol, enjoy it. I will probably watch a little bit of it because, of course, the timing with what's going on at the Scottish Open is going to be a little, difficult unless you get up very early. But so I'll be watching both. All right, guys, talk to you later. Look out Tuesday for the Open show, the Scottish Open show. Talk to you guys later.